All right, diving in again with another deep dive. This time, we're going where flowers are more than just pretty things to look at.
More like remedies for the soul.
Exactly. We're exploring Bach flower remedies. And wow, listeners sent in some really great material.
I did.
We've got excerpts from some big names like Julian Barnard and Tessa Langley, people who really know this stuff.
Yeah, and they even sent in research on specific
Oh,
remedies.
yeah. And even a full-on scientific review that looks at how effective these remedies actually are.
I think it's pretty clear that our listeners want to go beyond just the basics here.
Totally. They want the why behind the philosophy behind it all.
Like the whole idea of life force and how that connects to feeling good and being healthy.
That's what makes this deep dive so interesting. So let's get started with the man who started it all, Dr. Edward Bach. I mean, he was a doctor, but he kind of went his own way, right?
Yeah, he really did. Back in the 1930s, he shifted away from conventional medicine, the usual stuff. He started focusing on this idea that all illness comes from negative emotions. And I mean, that was a pretty radical idea back then.
Still is for some people.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Yeah.
definitely something people still debate today.
Instead of just treating the symptoms, he was looking at the whole person, their mind, their emotions, everything.
He was.
And that led him to this idea of life force, which sounds pretty mystical, right?
It kind of does have that mystical feel,
Yeah.
but it's also based on observing nature.
Oh, interesting.
Bach saw this life force as this energy that flows through all living things, like it connects us to nature and this feeling of wholeness.
Okay.
And he thought that when we feel negative emotions, it messes with that flow,
Ah, okay.
creates imbalances, and that can lead to illness.
It's almost like a garden hose.
Okay,
If you have a kink in the hose, the water can't flow freely.
right.
And if our life force is blocked by all that negativity, well, we just don't function as well.
That's a really good analogy. And this idea of blocked energy, it ties into what Julian Barnard calls karmic shells.
Thermite chills.
Yeah, these kind of rigid patterns, like in our thoughts and behaviors
Okay.
that we develop from our past experiences.
So, like, if we're always anxious or fearful, those feelings, they create a kind of shell around us
Exactly.
that stops us from being our true selves.
Yeah, and Barnard says these shells can stop us from adapting and flowing with the changes that life throws at us.
So it's like we're stuck.
Kinda. And this brings us back to Bach's remedies.
Okay.
He thought specific flowers could actually help dissolve these shells, get rid of those blockages,
Wow.
and then that restores the natural flow of our life force.
Oh, I see. So it's like each flower has this unique vibration, this energy pattern
Right.
that helps us shift our emotional state.
You got it. He grouped them into 38 remedies, each one targeting a different negative emotion.
38. Wow.
Yeah, anything from fear and uncertainty to just feeling totally hopeless or lacking confidence.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is.
So let's talk about one specifically.
Okay.
Impatience, I mean, this one seems super relevant these days. Everything's so fast-paced.
It really does.
What's the idea behind this one?
Well, like the name suggests, impatience is for people who struggle with, well, impatience.
Of course.
But it's more than just being annoyed by, like, slow lines or traffic.
Right.
It's a deep down tension, this
Right.
feeling that everything has to happen right now.
Like we're all caught in this crazy rush, constantly bombarded with information and things we have to do.
And demands, yeah.
It's no wonder so many of us are feeling impatient and stressed.
Yeah, I know. And Bach saw this same energy reflected in the impatience plant itself.
Oh, interesting.
It grows super fast, and when its seed pods burst open, I mean, they really burst open,
Wow.
scattering seeds everywhere.
Like it's all about quick movement.
Yeah, quick movements and forceful action.
Okay, so by taking the Emotions Remedy, we're tapping into a calmer energy.
Yeah, exactly. It's about finding that inner peace in the middle of all the chaos.
Ah, I get it.
And it's kind of fascinating that Bach specifically chose the paler mauve flowers over the red ones, the common ones.
Huh.
Maybe he sensed a gentler energy in that variety.
That's really interesting. It makes me think about all those subtle differences in the energy of plants and how they might affect us differently.
It's a whole world to explore.
It is.
And, while impatience helps us deal with that outward rush, there's another one, water violet, that tackles a different challenge,
Oh, what's that?
finding balance within ourselves.
Oh, okay.
Water violet is for those who are super independent, the kind of people who really like their solitude.
So it's not about making them more social.
No, it's about helping them find that sweet spot between being independent and connecting with others.
Okay, so how does that connect to the plant?
Well, the plant itself kind of shows this beautifully. You see, water violet grows in this clear, still water,
Uh-huh.
often just floating on the surface.
Ah,
It can root itself, but it seems to prefer that feeling of detachment.
that's a really vivid image. It's like they're content in their own space, but still connected to the world around them.
Yeah, exactly. And just like the water violet can choose to root itself if it needs to, someone who needs this remedy, they can learn to reach out and connect with others.
Without feeling overwhelmed.
Right, without feeling overwhelmed.
This is fascinating. And, speaking of feeling overwhelmed,
Yeah.
we got to talk about chestnut bud.
Okay.
This one's for people who keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again, right?
That's right. Bach connected this pattern to the chestnut tree itself.
What do you mean?
Well, it tends to produce multiple flower spikes,
Oh, okay.
each one facing a different direction,
Interesting.
like it's constantly searching for the right way to go.
Ah, I see.
But then you look at the bark, it's all peeling and breaking apart, almost like it's struggling to break free from these old patterns.
That's a powerful image. It makes you wonder how much of our own behavior is driven by these unconscious patterns that we've developed.
It really is a big question.
It is.
And it's something that Bach's whole philosophy encourages us to explore.
If we can become more aware of these patterns, these karmic shells, we can start making conscious choices about how we react to life's challenges.
That's the idea.
So it's not about blaming ourselves for past mistakes,
No, not at all.
but more about recognizing those patterns and finding a way to break free.
Exactly. And that's where these remedies might come in.
Okay.
Kind of gently nudge us towards a more balanced and harmonious state of being.
This is all so intriguing, but I've got to ask,
Yeah.
what does science actually say about all of this? I mean, the idea of life force and flower remedies, it's pretty far out there for some people.
Yeah, you're right. And that's a really important part of this deep dive, something we need to look at.
Absolutely. So let's shift gears and get into the science behind it all.
Let's do it. It's important to understand both the traditional wisdom,
Huh.
what people have believed for years, and what modern research tells us.
I'm ready. Let's dive in.
All right. This is where things get really interesting.
So we've been talking about all this philosophy behind Bach flower remedies,
Yeah.
how they're supposed to work on this energy level, but you mentioned a scientific review. What did the researchers actually find?
Well, this review, it was published back in 2009.
Okay.
It analyzed a bunch of studies on BFRs, looking at how well they worked for different things, like exam anxiety
Right.
and even ADHD.
What'd they find?
Well, the results were kind of mixed, to be honest. A
So,
lot of the studies, they didn't show a big difference between the actual remedies and a placebo.
so does that mean it's all just in our heads, like the placebo effect?
Yeah, that's the big question, right?
Yeah.
The review pointed out that a lot of those studies had some problems.
Problems.
Yeah, like the groups of people they studied were pretty small. And they weren't always doing things like properly blinding the participants, making sure they didn't know if they were getting the real remedy or a placebo.
Right.
So it's tough to say for sure what's going on. We definitely need more research, the kind that's really well designed.
But if the science isn't really clear yet, why are people still using these remedies?
That's what's so interesting.
Yeah.
Even though the scientific evidence isn't super strong yet, these remedies are still pretty popular.
It seems like people are getting something out of them.
Exactly. It really suggests that personal experience, what people feel when they use them, that plays a big role.
So they're feeling better, even if science can't fully explain it.
Right. Maybe there are subtle energy shifts happening, things that our current research methods just aren't picking up yet.
It makes me think about how we always focus on the physical side of health.
Yeah.
Maybe we're only just starting to understand how our emotions and energy and well-being, how it's all connected.
Absolutely. And that brings us right back to Bach's main idea, his core belief,
Okay.
that a lot of health problems, they actually start with emotional imbalances.
So these remedies, they're like a gentle way to nudge ourselves back into balance, to get that life force flowing smoothly again.
Exactly. And remember, Bach wasn't just giving people remedies. He was putting forward this whole philosophy of life,
Oh, right.
one where we realize how important it is to be aligned with our true purpose
Ah, okay.
and to live in harmony with ourselves and with nature.
It's a beautiful concept.
It is.
Makes me think about the responsibility we have for our own emotional well-being,
Yeah.
It's not just about taking a remedy, it's about the choices we make every day.
Exactly. Choices that nourish our life force.
And let us be the best versions of ourselves.
I totally agree. It's about becoming more aware of ourselves
Yeah.
and taking charge of our own healing journey.
Yeah.
And, Bach's work gives us a way to do that.
We talked about a few specific remedies.
Yeah,
But he actually organized them by emotional states, didn't he?
he did.
Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. He came up with 7 main groups,
Okay.
each one focused on a different emotional need. For example, you've got the fear group, which includes remedies like Mimulus for fears that you can pinpoint. You know what you're afraid of.
Okay.
Aspen for that vague anxiety where you can't quite put your finger on what's wrong.
Right.
And red chestnut for when you're constantly worried about your loved ones.
Fear is such a human thing. Everyone experiences it in some way.
It really is.
Yeah.
And Bach recognized that fear shows up in all these different ways.
Right.
Some people are terrified of spiders, for example, while others have this constant feeling of dread, like something bad's going to happen.
So the remedies in this fear group, they're like different tools for dealing with all those variations of fear.
Exactly. They're not about erasing fear altogether,
Yeah.
but helping us find some courage
Okay.
and a sense of inner peace, even when things are tough.
It's not about pretending we're not afraid.
No,
It's about finding that strength to keep going despite our fears.
you got it. And it's amazing how he linked each remedy to the plant's characteristics,
Give me an example.
Like Mimulus, it often grows near these clear streams, symbolizing purity and clarity.
Oh, okay.
Bach thought this remedy could help us see our fears clearly, like really understand them, so we can overcome them.
So by taking the remedy, we're tapping into the strength of the plant itself.
Yeah, exactly. It's like recognizing that nature has so much wisdom to offer. We just have to listen.
It's not all about fear, though, right?
No, there are other groups for all sorts of emotional states.
Like what?
Well, there's the uncertainty group, for instance.
Oh, okay.
That one's got remedies like Serato.
Okay.
It's for people who always need reassurance from others, like they don't trust their own judgment.
Right.
And then there's Scleranthus. For those who can't make up their minds, they're always going back and forth.
Oh, I know people like that.
We all feel uncertain sometimes. It's normal.
It is.
These remedies aren't about becoming perfect.
Right.
Or never feeling anything negative.
It's about dealing with life's ups and downs in a healthy way,
Exactly. It's about accepting all of our emotions.
not trying to bury them.
Right. And learning to manage them effectively.
So these remedies, they can be helpful tools on that journey.
Exactly. It's a totally different way of thinking about emotional well-being.
It is.
And I'm curious to hear about the other remedy groups. What else did Bach see as these core emotional challenges we face?
That's a great question. We'll definitely get into those and explore how they can help us deal with some of the tough stuff that life throws our way.
We've talked about fear and uncertainty, but I know there are even more of these remedy groups.
Oh, there are. Bach really seemed to, categorize the whole range of human emotions.
He did. So what other challenges did he focus on?
Well, one group he called overcare for welfare of others.
Okay.
These remedies, they're all about those times when we focus so much on other people
Right.
that we forget about our own needs.
Ah, the people pleasers.
Exactly. Those caretaker types. And it's not that caring for others is bad.
No, of course not.
But these remedies are for when it starts to weigh us down, when we lose ourselves in the process. So it's about that balance, giving and taking care of yourself, too.
Right, exactly. And one that comes to mind in this group is chicory.
Okay.
It's for people who tend to be a little possessive, a little too involved in other people's lives.
Oh, I know a few people like that.
Right. They shower their loved ones with attention and gifts, but then they get upset if they don't get that same level of attention back.
It's like giving with strings attached, even if they don't realize it.
Exactly. Bach noticed that the chicory plant itself kind of does the same thing.
Really?
Yeah, it has these bright blue flowers that follow the sun all day long.
So they need that attention.
Like they're constantly seeking it out. That's a perfect analogy, really.
It makes you think about how much we're influenced by these subtle things we see in nature.
It really does. Bach was convinced that plants reflect our own emotions.
Right.
And by understanding them, we can understand ourselves better.
It's like nature's giving us clues on how to heal.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual remedies, it's Bach's whole philosophy. This interconnectedness. He saw our well-being as tied to nature's well-being.
Especially important now with all the environmental issues we're facing.
It really is. His work reminds us we're not separate from nature.
Right.
We're a part of it. So by taking care of ourselves, emotionally, mentally, physically.
We're taking care of the planet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes me think of Barnard's idea of an emotional diet.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
We have to be aware of the negative thoughts and feelings we're taking in.
Like junk food for the soul.
Yeah. Just like we watch what we eat, if we're bombarded with negativity all the time, it affects us.
It spills over into everything.
Right. Our relationships, how we see the world.
So it's not just about taking a remedy to fix a problem.
No, it's bigger than that.
It's about living in a more positive and balanced way
Exactly. Making choices that nourish our life force.
that let us be our best selves.
I like that. It's about taking responsibility for how we feel,
Yeah.
realizing that our inner state, it affects everything we do.
It's empowering. We have more control than we think.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the best things about Bach's work.
What do you mean?
It reminds us that we can heal, we can change our perspective,
Right.
create more joy and well-being. It's a hopeful message.
It is, and maybe that's why these remedies resonate with so many people.
Even if the science isn't totally there yet,
People feel like it works.
it's this ancient wisdom, this respect for nature's healing power.
Well, this deep dive has been absolutely fascinating.
It has.
We've gone from the philosophy to the specific remedies and even touched on the science.
It's been great exploring all of this with you.
Likewise,
It's clear you're interested in this whole idea of well-being,
I am.
the mind-body-spirit connection.
And all connects.
And I bet our listeners are feeling that same sense of curiosity.
I hope so.
You know, Bach's work offers a really unique perspective on how to find more harmony and balance in our lives.
It really does.
It's like an invitation to look deeper, explore the energy within us and in nature.
It's a journey of self-discovery, and I think it's a journey worth taking.
And maybe this deep dive has sparked some new ideas for you. Maybe you're thinking about trying some of these remedies or just paying closer attention to how you feel.